What is love? It is the peculiarity of the human mind that it understands and acts through ideas because it is very closely tied to the body. Anton Wilhelm Amo. In the spirit of full disclosure, I ought to make a clean breast of my gloomiest aberration. I once paid, not got paid, in rubies to slog on a rusting pirate vessel as an apprentice. The gig didn't last long. My lack of submissiveness was not suited for the voyage. As the crew chased after me with a noose, I jumped off the ship and swam across the deep sea. I later learned the fate of those lured tyros who were left behind. The boat sailed to a minuscule, obscure island where these sycophants were scholastically battered and sodomized until they turned into ideological zombies. Then, before sunrise, they were immolated at the shrine of the island's sacred gods. Karl Marx, Alfred Marshall, Friedrich Hayek, and John Maynard Keynes, and for the Negroes, Sir William Arthur Lewis. Such horrendous proselytism unquestionably turns a sympathetic mumina into a wicked oppressor or a vicious predator, culminating the cyclic inferno. As luck would have it, once I reached dry land, my saneness and veracity did not make my life easier. I was hunted down like a witch by mobs of sophists and anarchists. They sought to castrate and then burn me on a cross for my public plea to get rid of capitalism and my enmity for socialism and communism. I have come to expect that even people whose beliefs differ from strict economic orthodox views and Islamic economics shenanigans will find my voice to be exceedingly radical but heresy. At times they stunned me with makeshift projectiles filled with bullshit. I would have been composing sonnets to Mehdi Ben Barka with a silent pen right now had I failed to regain consciousness and had been caught. Instead, I add my voice to the clamoring crowds who oppose modern-day social and political economy constructs. Sadly, my frustrating entanglements do elevate my reasoning to consciousness-piercing disciples. It pains me to admit that my sermon against the prevailing social, commerce, and trade, and political bonds inherited from the 18th century factories, invasions, and travesties passes for a strange sound instead of an alarming siren. Ideals have proven to be the only way to exist. Without picking up a pen and writing them down, you desist to exist. It is so refreshing, then, when someone happens to relish the rhythm of my composition and can distinguish a signal from the noise. I am expressing gratitude with joy and humility to the 1%er who have decrypted my wrath and made sense of my rants to the lagging 99%ers. You have added your voices to mine, and suddenly people are noticing. Eu sunt degustar de idea. I am the merchant of an idea. Konstantin Neuka. If you rode the previous roller coaster of economic jihad, my call for ending antiquated social axioms defining us, you have been exposed to the awful rumpus going on in my head. No matter how much I try, I just cannot bring myself to accept intolerance or prejudice in life. I am all for the death penalty when it comes to punishing dummies and hypocrites who brandish their intellectual sheriff badges to aid and abet socioeconomic genocide. Their presence makes my fingers and toes tingle with ire. I feel compelled to either choke them or emotionally jet away. What is there to learn from my first literary crusade? Communism was an experiment of Frankensteinian proportions. It was thrown out when the importance of human beings integrated the notion of the rational and gained grounds in most part of the Red World. A minuscule number of cynical rich kids and former Cold War machines have yet to come to terms with the factual evidence of communism's inherent sins. Dazed by the 21st century's range and depth of social and political time warp, these pathetic coalitions indict the obsessional neoliberal agenda polluting transnational policy and third world gushes. They inaudibly vindicate the disillusioned Cuban and Vietnamese elite. With the same stomach-churning candor, they discount North Korea's sociopathic regime and its sadistic, mammoth-sized penitentiary camps. On the same pyramid of foolishness, I list socialist caricatures who would cite France as a success story. That blinkered nation's socialist facade persists with the help of the Western nations' joint ownership and abuses of their former colonies. Furthermore, France's anti-immigrant policies confirm that its socialism is merely a parody. As far as the current Middle East social wretch, I reserve the right to demystify Islamic economics for reasons you, the reader, will come to disentangle. What is there to say about the rest of the world, which is terrified of shrieks that excavate skepticism over modern prime commerce and trade contrivances and expand the possibility of a new road? Swimming against the stream is a lonesome voyage. So let me say it plainly. The canonization of capitalism, it is without merit. The Victorian scheme that has made humiliation a quotidian routine for most common mortals is now tilting the globe to the brink of collapse. Yet no sane mind or credible creature has shown up to push for its eviction from our streams of consciousness. Economists' schemes are rife with outdated axioms masquerading as common sense that should elicit only one response: rejection. Deplorably, most of their half-baked concepts are based on observations of creatures who only exist in economists' fantasies, yet they continue to be unchallenged. Their rulings are used to launch precarious policies that devastate the prospect of a dignified existence for billions of people on this dying planet. Scratch the surface of bellicose intellectual eunuchs and the one-track mind of the mutineers masquerade, and you will figure out on your own that their treatises are merely an exercise to paint pervasive social class disparities in beautiful charts and convoluted patterns. Most of the trendy economic tunes are nothing more than hoopla for chic serfdom, or should I use the proper terminology here, the self-enslaved's empowerment. Alas, the public has mistaken these philosophical pieces of academic aerobics for condemnations of global social, commerce and trade, and political injustices. As a result, every Tom, Dick, Harry, and Henriette absurdly has faith in capitalism and naively believes that he or she is one little step away from the gaining side of inclusive socioeconomic injustice. Proper implantation of better trading conditions or sustainability adds to a peppy slogan a certain je ne sais quoi that chokes out rancorous debates on socio-politico-economic injustice and gets me pumped for at least 2 seconds. Suddenly, grim realities sneak into the scene and ruin my optimism with gradually deepening despondency. I cannot help but be disgusted every time the public galvanizes with fury and thunder behind petty structural adjustment ultimatums, like the standard working hours or minimum wage. Socioeconomic inequality is an ambiguous theme exasperating radical movements for a change of humankind's moral compass. Two very distinct elements of inequality, disparity and injustice, are squeezed under one huge umbrella. A socioeconomic disparity is an inherent imperfection of any society and requires structural changes to balance it out. Injustice of any kind is a deliberate discriminatory social construct and demands social repentance and mending to get rid of the evil. to put these two conversations, disparity and injustice, in a cut-and-dried analogy. Class disparity is to socio-politico-economic injustice what civil rights are to the abomination of slavery. The lack of a clear moral line in the sand between underlying social conditions and systematic inhumanity blurs the real essence of political economy examinations, which have become a prerequisite to weighing civil rights. Certain readers resented me when they could no longer recognize their territory, their institution. Jacques Derrida. When you write a book to be slowly digested, not a gimmick or a sales pitch, you have to embrace your imperfections and accept insolence. It was once suggested that no sane mind would want to touch my scathing Philippic. A fisherman who whispered in my ear that only 1% of the river is useful to him hardened my impenitence. If you happen to be one of the fuming readers and a passionately sluggish creature, to top it off, who wonders what the hell Ethosism is, well, I am confident that by the end of this book, you will not be able to lecture a room full of agnostic capitalists or redirect the remaining Marxist lambs away from the cliff of promise. It will take you more than one slow ride on this roller coaster. If you are expecting to read the Arthashastra of the 21st century, well, you are in for a monumental disappointment. I have never felt particularly pretentious. I am compelled by bibliophiles' sluggishness to highlight the fact that my antidote for the current global socio-politico-economic even-handedness departs from the highly toxic slogans of political economy's coquettes. This book relies on the certainty that we become color, gender, shape, size, and class blind when we have a motive to reduce to ashes our global community's sordid conventions. A piece of art is a coup d'essai to crank up sentiment in people. It can be full of characters that elicit different emotions when observed from different distances. Unlike any other form of expression, an essayist gives readers the full right and responsibility to add to a crafted sentence a voice, a decor, and a heartbeat that they see as a best fit. An initiator of vibrations is forever held hostage in strangers' and comrades' brains, who indiscreetly stab or attempt to deface the only thing left to a writer, a thought. I bear my back to the vein, the agony, and the delight that exists on different parts of the globe. Afterward, I sequester my mind to decipher the sensation. Though I lack digital dexterity to skillfully play any instrument, my words are my music. I compose the score. It is up to your bravura and audacity to reach for the instrument of your choice and serenade the rest of the world. To a painter, the ultimate compliment is a tear. As a hostile writer, I am in the business of making readers disgusted with contemporary social constructs and contracts. I will not falsify my melancholia with Nina Simone's lamentation. Please don't let me be misunderstood. I will not allow Maecenas and traducers to hunt and squash me like Leon Trotsky, like a rat. Any attempt to puncture my conscience and free Alfred Willy or Rudy Dutschke will be vain. I plead for 33 strips of flesh to be torn from my chest, then sheck me as I go west and cross the river Styx to Soul Kiss and Balia Kamara. This book contains 2 successive waves of thoughts. At times I encapsulate years' worth of intrusion into one phrase, while at other times a second of awareness births out a multitude of pages. Be warned, however, I would not rest in peace until my brain is served as a feast to 5 Coraway tribe children, 5 years of age, sitting on piles of Carolyn Bryant Donham and Truganini statuettes, staring at Gian Giacomo Feltrinelli portrait, while they are being serenaded by a blind Danish comedian singing Con te partiro. 5 days later, the ashes of my remains and the leftovers from the banquet should be spewed around Cachura, Paraguay. As for the charges against me, I am unconcerned. I am beyond their timid lying morality, and so I am beyond caring. Famileo ransom. Cutie. Here you have bravely embarked on a death-defying journey into my hunch. Ethosism is partly a dedication to Anton Wilhelm Amo, a victim of academia's bigotry and his own scholastic queerness, which made him pay the ultimate price: deprivation of relevance. At this moment, I take great pleasure in making Isaac Newton roll in his tomb by causing you to read the name of an ingenious philosopher, Robert Hooke. In doing so, you are saving my integrity. To show my gratitude of your acceptance or inquisitiveness, I am going to bang devilishly on your thick, disenchanted walls until you are awakened and ready to help me chase away the reckless demons residing in every ordinary mortal, to raise Cain. I could have easily opted for a smoother route on this journey by charmingly reciting stony theories that frame the main current social and political ideologies, but I refuse to abstain from abusing my right of conscience. To abandon any of my infuriating traits and diffuse my identity is not unbearable. It is unthinkable. As a shameless dissenter, I live with the urge of finishing brave protagonists' sentences or ruining conformists' contentment. My advice to you, and anyone with a handful of neurons that respond to empathetic stimuli, who have been bitten by a serpent with $signs at the end of its tail, is don't run around like a chicken with its head cut off. Keep reading this torturous book. It is an emetic to rid your conscience of lies. For the sake of humanity, everyone should be mortified to die without winning some victory over pervasive absurdities. This literary ayahuasca-fueled experience will inundate your nerves with Thomas Clarkson's apparition. The attempt to take a chunky bite of capitalism, communism, or socialism's reshuffled stances and spit it into a blazing fire is not made in vain. There is no better time than the 21st century to shift the ground of the global inequality dispute by zooming in on socioeconomic injustice. What can you and I positively achieve? Fight cynicism. Urgency and persistence are of the essence. We are well equipped to stamp out wealth distribution debauchery and pave the way for an alternative to the Victorians' exoneration of injustices. Through the pain, always remember that nobody comes from nowhere. There is a story behind everybody. The same goes for ideas. None come from thin air. A question precedes every answer, or at least one should. Courage is indubitably the most glorified of all virtues, while for a creature like myself, encouragement is most arousing of all vices. In life, nothing is worth more than paying attention.